everyone. I'd like to call the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Present and attending are Patty Boozma, Candace Voigt, Lua Pipri, Michael Biggs, and John Arnott, and myself, Bob Ratter. We have a quorum. I would like to, at this time, acknowledge staff, Ron Ruthin, and there are members of the Town Council and the MUD Board here. Would you please stand and be recognized? Mr. Perro. Huh? Say your name. Greg Lamont. Philip Schaffner. MUD Board. Jim Moss. Jim Thomas, and Jim Hayes. Thank you very much. Today, we're going to go to a public hearing, and opening at that point. In order, staff report, the applicant presentation, and public comments. The first item on the agenda is conduct a public hearing regarding a variance to encroach into the front yard setback for a property located on 10.58 acres located in the Mary Medlin Survey, Abstract 832 on Junction Way. And that is item 2015-0640T. At this time, I turn to Ron Ruthven, our staff representative. Ron?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to just mention briefly I did pass out some recent correspondence that we got today regarding this request. Also, just to let the board know, this involves a dual request. This one being a setback variance. As such, it requires a public notice according to the Code of Ordinances and also state law. The next briefing that we'll get into when we get to it is a special exception request related to fencing on the site. Also, relative to this request with the wastewater treatment plan and the Trophy Club MUD, just to kind of give some context with this meeting for the board, this is the first of 3 meetings today. There'll be a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 6 o'clock. There'll be a Town Council meeting at 7 o'clock.
Excuse me, Ron. We cannot shut those doors. This is an open meeting. Please open both the doors. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
Good catch. In the context of the request that I'm about to go into the details on, there are other meetings today relative to this development site. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is going to consider the final plat, as will the council meeting at 7 o'clock, along with some other waivers. However, the waiver that's before you today, or the variance request that's before you today, deals specifically with the front setback. And we get into the fences, it'll deal specifically with those as well. So I only gave you the other information just to give you the context of what we're doing today. So board action on this request in particular has a direct effect on the approval of the final plat scheduled for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 6 o'clock. So with that, I'll get into the details of this request. This request involves a setback variance to the front setback along the front of the property. And the front of the property in this case is the south side of the property. There's an existing access road that has been accessing this site since it was first constructed in the mid-70s. When the property was platted, through the platting process, there had to be a dedication of a public road according to the subdivision regulations. And what triggered the whole platting requirements, since the plant is or has been in existence for so long, was recent improvements that are proposed by the MUD to the plant. The subdivision ordinance states that no permit can be issued unless a property is platted, therefore the platting requirement. So with that, on the request, because the road on the final plat shows as being on the southern portion of the property, kind of matching where the current access road is, that is where the setback would naturally be, and that's what the subdivision regulations state, is that a plat has to show whatever the setback is. In this case, the zoning is GU, government use. government use says the front setback is whatever the most restrictive setback is in the abutting zoning. Well, the most restrictive setback in the abutting zoning is PD 31, which contains the Canterbury Hills development, and that would be a 25-foot front setback. Therefore, the 25-foot setback requirement, which is what the MUD is requesting to waive. And the reason for the waiver, or the variance request, is because they have some existing buildings, or an existing building that would encroach into the front setback, as well as some new structures that they propose to build as part of the improvements that would also encroach into the front setback. So you see in your briefings the hardship test, as it were, for somebody that's requesting a variance. And given the age of the lot, it predates the incorporation of this property into the town. It is a very unique situation given the public interest, significant public interest involved with the improvements to the plant. Staff is recommending approval of this and does recognize a hardship. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board.
At this time, the board would ask the members of the board to be recognized one at a time and state your name if you have any questions at this time. And we'll start with you, John.
John Arnott.
John, bring it down to you.
Thank you. John Arnott. I do have a question, Ron. It says, I just want to, actually it's a confirmation, not so much. It states in the briefing that the current proposed building locations would not affect the construction of said roadway and would not create any potential visual obstructions to traffic. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Michael?
I have no questions.
Lou?
No questions.
Pam? Patty?
Patient.
Pasha. Right. I've done that twice already. Pasha?
No questions yet. No questions.
I have no questions at this time. At this time, the board would, since we have already heard the staff request and the staff report, point out that anyone requesting to speak on this matter, please approach Ms. Killingsworth. You have a request to speak application, if you would please make it out. At this time, we'll take the applicant's presentation, and I understand that, I don't have it in front of me right now. Jennifer McKnight is speaking on behalf of the MUD District. Jennifer, please state your name and position.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer McKnight, and I'm the General Manager of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. I appreciate the opportunity to address you all tonight. I have my team here with me, and I'd like to introduce them. With me is Kevin Glover, and he is our Senior Project Manager on the wastewater treatment plant project. He's with the Wallace Group, which is a CP&Y company. And I also have Adam Marsh here. He is a project engineer, and he is with CP&Y. So if there are engineering type questions, I'm going to let them answer them, and I will just go through the presentation. Just a quick overview. I think Ron's covered most of this, but the plant was built in the 70s. It's undergone 2 major rehabilitations since its original construction. The first was in the 90s, and the second was in the early 2000s. At this time, the plant is at its maximum treatment capacity, and we are undergoing a upgrade in order to be able to ensure that we can have consistent meeting our TCEQ discharge permit limits. The treatment technology that we chose to allow the plant to stay within its existing footprint and to meet current and future regulatory requirements. We went on quite a journey to figure out exactly what treatment process would be the best for us here in Trophy Club. And one of the main issues that we looked at was we did want to stay within the same footprint of the plant site itself. Wastewater treatment is a necessary evil. It's in all communities, and it's there to protect the health and welfare of residents. It's not a subject we all like to have a conversation about, especially at dinner time, but it is there, and it does serve a very important purpose. The funding of our treatment plant upgrades are through a series of revenue bonds as well as tax bonds. Today, we're here to respectfully request some waivers from the Zoning Board of Adjustments, specifically, as Ron talked about, the setback requirement, and also we want to talk about a special, what did you call it? Exception regarding the screening, the fencing, and landscaping. This first drawing is just a kind of quick overview of what the plant site looks like. You can see the yellow line, that is where the setback would come. And you can see that there is a what we call an influent weir that protrudes out in front of the setback area. I'll talk a little bit more about why it's necessary that be there in just a few moments. You can also see that we do have an existing building that's already constructed there that does come out into that setback area a small amount. The blue around the property represents the chain link fence that's there at this time. So first of all, a little bit about the setback requirement. The ordinance requires a 25-foot wide setback to be adjacent to the right-of-way dedication. This requirement impacts an existing maintenance building that we have out there. It also impacts that concrete influent weir. This weir structure cannot be relocated. It has to do with the hydraulic flow through the plant site to make sure that we can reach the efficient treatment that we need. So what we are asking for is to have the 25-foot setback completely waived. The setback requirement does cause some hardships for us. The plant predates the town incorporation, and unfortunately, the site was not originally designed to conform with the town ordinances that we have in existence today, because of course they didn't exist at that time. The plant design has to consider the proper elevations to ensure that the waste streams flow properly through the treatment process at specified rates. This original construction had to be implemented into the design. So in other words, unless we tear out everything and start all over again, we have to keep the plant as it is in certain areas. Hydraulically, this new weir can't be relocated for the plant to function properly. The proposed location of the weir allows for equal flow to go through these membrane basins for treatment. If we do not get adequate treatment, then we will of course have inadequately treated wastewater flowing into the golf course lakes, which are used to irrigate the golf course, and to the tributary that leads to Lake Grapevine. At this time, the plant is accessible only by an access easement, which is unique to any other property within the town. And the wastewater treatment plant serves a very important public purpose to protect the health and welfare, and it is owned by a political subdivision of the state. The property is unique as there's no other wastewater treatment plant in the town of Trophy Club. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the screening requirements. If you look at the overhead, you can see a aerial view of the plant site. The ordinance requires that we build an 8-foot masonry screening fence at the area that's adjacent to a residential district. That would be the area on the north side of the plant that's adjacent to the Canterbury Hills. The state law requires, I actually put here a 40-foot buffer, but it's actually a 150-foot buffer between the plant site and any residential. So if you look at this, picture up there, you can see that from where the yellow line is the border of the property, if you go back 150 feet, you can easily see that it's very highly dense, and with vegetation, and that's something that has to stay there. It's not something that we could later change. There is a requirement that we have to have a buffer between a wastewater treatment plant and any residential property. If we were required to include the screening, it is going to require that we remove several large mature trees in that area. It will have a bigger impact on the environment than just leaving it in its natural state there's a lot of large mature trees out there. No work is going to be performed in that area, and so we are asking for you all to grant a waiver from that screening requirement. Some of the hardships that are caused, enforcement of the screening requirement will impose difficulty and unnecessary hardship, as mature trees will have to be removed. The installation of screening will have a greater impact on the environment and environmental conditions of the land than just leaving it in its natural state. The state required buffer between the residential lots and a wastewater treatment plant ensures that there's adequate separation and no visibility to the plant site because of the dense natural vegetation. Granting this waiver will not result in diminution of surrounding properties, and it will benefit the public by maintaining the natural lands. Unlike other developments, the wastewater plant specifically serves a public purpose, and it's funded by the taxpayers and the ratepayers of the district. The screening requirement places a financial burden on the tax and the ratepayers for now and in the future. Unlike other developers, that the developer funds these processes or projects, these are actually funded by the residents of Trophy Club and all of our ratepayers. We went around the area just to show the visibility of the wastewater plant from different angles. Hershey Lane is adjacent to Junction Way, and you can see, if you're looking from these lots towards the wastewater plant, you really can't see anything with the vegetation. If you go to the very end of Indian Creek, which is the area where that screening would be along that adjacent part, you can see that it's just very heavily wooded. There is no view of the wastewater plant from that area either. Next, we would like to ask some waivers from the fencing requirements. The ordinance prohibits that there be to allow fencing in the front area, the front setback area adjacent to the right-of-way, and it does not permit the use of chain link fencing. State law does require that a wastewater treatment plant be completely surrounded by fencing, and it has to be secured from unauthorized entry. Our plant does have open basins, and that is requires extra security with some signs and things like that. But it is a very dangerous area. You would not want children to get in there. We are asking to allow the fencing to continue to surround the site, including that front area, and be permitted to use chain link fence with 3 strands of barbed wire across the top. That is a requirement. If you use the 6-foot chain link fence, you have to have 3 strands of barbed wire across the top. If you use 8-foot chain link fence or some other material, you have to have 1 strand of barbed wire across the top. So we will need the barbed wire across the top of any type of fence. Did
you break it?
I think I did. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, so some of the hardships due to the fence requirements. First of all, if we look at 211.013 of the local government code, it states that the subchapter does not authorize the governing body of a municipality to require the removal or destruction of property that exists at the time the governing body implements the subchapter, and that is actually necessarily used in a public service business. And I point that out because the fencing has been there since the plant was originally constructed, and of course it is used in a public service business. The fence must comply with state requirements, and it needs to be intruder resistant for the protection of the public and the security of the site. Unique to this site, there are hazardous substances and chemicals stored on the site, and there are biologically hazardous wastewater that's treated there. The site must be secured from unauthorized entry. A chain link fence with 3 strands of barbed wire is the most intruder resistant type fencing. I know there were some questions about if chain link fence has ever been allowed in Trophy Club. So I took a tour through Trophy Club, and I found that all of the parks in Trophy Club have chain link fence. The golf course maintenance building, that's our next door neighbor, they have the chain link fence, also with the 3 strands of barbed wire across the top. There are a couple of homes in Trophy Club that have chain link fence. There's a cell tower, the tennis courts, the cemetery right next door to us, and all of the schools incorporate chain link fence into their projects as well. Next, the landscaping requirements. We are asking for a waiver from the landscaping requirements. We did include that with the ZBA application, but after it was submitted, we learned from the staff that this was not the appropriate body to bring those requirements to. But I know you all saw it in your application, so I just wanted to tell you why that was done. Thank you for your consideration and your help to help us move this very important project forward. I will now turn it over if you all have any questions for me or the engineers.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. At this time, if we go to public comments.
Okay.
From there, we go to questions from the board. At this time, do we have any applicants for public comment?
Yes, we do. Bill Rose.
Mr. Rose?
I believe I'm signed up to speak on the later, where it comes up later, on fencing.
Well, this is part of it.
Want to take
He
the break?
put-
Actually,
it's
it's a separate agenda item.
Separate
Uh,
agenda.
now,
item.
yes, it's
Even though it's not a public hearing, you can still obviously have speakers on it, but this is
If you wish to
specifically
speak
related,
now, you
related
may.
to the setback.
Anyone else?
no. They both want to speak to a different agenda item.
Okay. At this time, any members of the board have any questions at this time?
Mike Biggs, I do. You made a statement a minute ago that the state says that we can't require you to remove that fence, take your property, or the fence is already existing. Is that correct? Did I understand you correctly? What'd you say?
What I indicated was in the 211, the local government code, it states that the governing body, which would be, I guess, the council, should not require things that were there and served a public purpose prior to the incorporation or prior to the adoption of their rules. Those should not be destroyed.
Should or could not?
Let's see. It does not authorize the governing body of a municipality to require the removal or destruction of property that exists at the time the governing body implements this subchapter. That's from that
Okay.
rule.
But we could require you to screen it.
Yes, I would imagine.
And just for the record, when you start speaking, please say your name like we do in the
Regular session.
regular sessions when we're not being videotaped. Mr. Pipri.
Lou Peppery, I'd like to make a suggestion, since in looking at the citizen comments and emails that we've received, the majority are on the fencing. Can we take these things one at a time, get rid of the ones that are not controversial, and jump into the last one, the concerns that our citizens have?
When you say one at a time, you're talking about,
Seems to me we have 3 things. We have the plan itself, the setback,
mhm.
and then we have screening and fencing.
Right.
2 separate.
Yeah,
Two.
as it relates to the public hearing we're in now, it's strictly on the setback itself. So
Okay.
my recommendation would be, if you when we get to the fencing, it'll be a separate agenda item, and then we can really dive in on those
Okay.
questions.
No questions. Candace, vote.
Paisha Boomsma, I have a question for the applicant. How would this, if, say the board were to deny this, the setback variance, how would this affect your ability to serve the new restaurants coming in? Would you still be able to serve them? What would be your alternative plan?
I'm not sure I understand. You mean if you deny the setback? Is that what you're asking?
The setback variance, right?
Yeah. We will have to redesign the plant. So it will lengthen the amount of time that there would be a suspension on the wastewater, new connections to the new commitments to the wastewater treatment plant.
What would you imagine that time frame would be?
I guess that would be a question for the
Years?
engineer. How long would it take you to redesign?
Excuse me.
Would
Please
you
come
please
up
step,
to this.
if you're going to address, please step forward and state your name.
My name is Kevin Glover, the senior project engineer. You're probably at least a minimum of 6 to 8 months.
Just to redesign, not to do the actual
Design.
improvements.
Construction's still going to take 18 months after we get the redesign, so you're looking at 2 years.
Either way, we're looking at 2 years.
We expect to have more capacity when we're doing the plant in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 should take 6 to 9 months for construction, and that's when we will have additional capacity. So if you added, as you said, 6 months for for redesign, then you're talking 12 to 15 months instead of 6 to 9 months.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question.
Lou Pipri?
Lou Peppery. Jennifer, could you put the picture you had up there that has the influent weir?
I think
That's good.
this one here is a bigger one. Of
Okay.
it.
Refresh my memory. Where do all the influent lines run to? From?
Kevin, you want to address this?
Or to, I guess.
I'm
Influent.
Kevin Glover. All the influent lines come up there to the northeast, the northwest corner, called the headworks. They come into there and are then pumped up to the influent weir structure, back to the influent weir structure, and from there it hydraulically flows back to the north.
So this wouldn't be a case of just moving the influent weir. It would be moving all of those lines and redesigning the whole internal plumbing of the plant.
Yes.
Okay.
Bob Ratter, Chairman. Just to go over a couple things that Ms. McKnight stated, one of the things that we need to take into consideration as a board is the Texas Administrative Code Environmental Quality, TCEQ, requires that a facility must be completely fenced, have a lockable gate at each access point. This is Chapter 217, Subchapter M, Rule 217.328. No facility containing an open gate. A facility having an open tank must have hazard signs stating danger, open tanks, no trespassing, within visible sighting of each other, as Ms. McKnight stated. A facility containing an open tank must be surrounded by an intruder-resistant fence. That is, 1, at least 8-foot solid material or chain link fence topped with at least 1 strand of barbed wire. At least 6-foot high solid material or chain link fence topped with 3 strands of barbed wire, or a 5-strand barbed wire fence may be used in rural areas for fencing lagoons or overland flow, which we do not have. A facility must have at least 1 all-weather access road within the driving surface situated above the 100-year floodplain. At this time, we have the 6-foot fence with 3 strands, which is already out and surrounding the facility. I do have a question, though, for Mr. Ruffin, that would any decision today made regarding the setback or the fence have any bearing on the plat being submitted at 6 o'clock today?
Regarding the setback, yes.
And would the boundaries of the plat be affected if the setbacks and fence waivers were to be allowed?
The fence would not be affected by the plat. What's affected by the plat is the front setback, because the final plat that's up for consideration tonight after this meeting does not show the required front setback. If the front setback variance is granted by the board, the plat will then be in compliance with that requirement. So the assumption is that, and again, you have to understand the context of this. The assumption is that the variance gets approved, then the plat is then in compliance with the requirement to show the front setback.
Thank you. Ms. McKnight, I have a question for you. In light of the conditions around this country right now, are there any EPA or Homeland Security requirements other than what we have, which I just read from the TCEQ, that are over and above those standards?
Over and above the fencing and the,
Security measures.
yes. We are required to have an emergency response plan with certain actions that we will take if things happen. You are not required at this time to have cameras, but we do. That is something that they've tried to implement for a long time. But we do have cameras out that around our plant so that we can see. But it is there is seriously hazardous biological material out at the wastewater plant. And I guess as a mother, it has always very much concerned me. If kids get out there, kids play, it looks like a neato place with little ladders you can crawl up and run around and play games. And I've actually seen kids, not here, but at other districts that do that. And a simple trip into a wastewater digester it's fatal. There's no ability to get someone out once they get into a digester with the aeration on. So it is a dangerous place, and my goal is I believe that the most intruder resistant fence is the fence that we have out there. Kids don't like to climb over the barbed wire at the top. So that is my concern of keeping it as secure as possible. And as you're saying, there are other, we have to do a vulnerability assessment, we have to know areas, and we have to submit those to the state. Okay.
At this time, again, we're just talking about the setback.
Yes.
Correct, Ron?
That's correct.
John, do you have any further questions?
No further questions.
Mr. Biggs?
No further questions.
Mr. Pipri?
No further questions.
Candace vote, no
Nope.
questions.
All right.
No.
At this time, then, I will close the public hearing and move to the discussion amongst the members. And then at the appropriate time, entertain a motion. John, do you have any questions to anybody, or do you have any opinion about what we're doing?
Chairman, just real quick, if I may, the actual vote will occur. That's
Yeah.
also a separate agenda item as well. So once we close the public hearing and hear the next item, or after we hear the next item, then we can the board can vote.
All right, we're past the public hearing. Now we're into,
We have one more item on the public hearing.
oh, I'm sorry. And that was?
That's the property at 311 Village
Oh,
Trail.
311. I'm sorry. Would the gentleman for 311 please come forward? And we're dealing with Mr. Ruffin?
What this involves is a variance request by the applicant to encroach on the rear yard setback. There's a 20-foot rear yard setback requirement. They're requesting to encroach 15 feet into that 20-foot rear setback requirement in order to construct an addition onto the home. The applicant is wishing to do this addition in order to accommodate a disabled family member. They do have a second story on the house, but this person is not able to navigate the stairwell up to the second floor, so they want to add on to the ground floor. This would include a bedroom as well as a full bathroom onto the house. We did do a notification of all the properties within 200 feet. I did hear from one person today by telephone. They unfortunately had a family emergency. They were going to be at the meeting, and they asked me just to relay verbally to the board that they are opposed to the request. And for the record, that is James and Nancy Rohde at 315 Village Trail. Other than that, in terms of a staff recommendation, again, we use the same requirement because this is a true variance to the zoning requirements for a setback, similar to the MUD. We use the hardship test that was in your briefings. And although there is obviously a good reason for wanting to expand the home to accommodate this person, unfortunately it doesn't meet the strict definition of a hardship in the code. So staff is recommending denial, but I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board.
For those of you, it's page 55 in your packet. Mr. Ali,
Yes, sir, Mr. Rare.
state your name and your address, please.
Sure. My name is Syed Amir Ali, and I reside at 311 Trophy Club. And like Mr. Ron has pointed out, my only thing is that I got a 40-plus-year-old mentally disabled sister, and she's having tough time climbing upstairs to her bedroom. I have 2 kids, and on upper story, I got only 2 bedroom and a bath. It becomes kind of like hectic for all 3 of them to share one bathroom and stuff like that. So I'm using my downstairs bathroom for her to take care of her regular business and stuff like that. And it's really cumbersome for her to climb up and down multiple times a day. Second thing, the most important thing in our opinion is in case of emergency like fire, earthquake, natural disaster, anything like that, since she lives upstairs and she take baby steps to climb down the stairs, literally baby steps, 1 step at a time, it would it would jeopardize his safety in that kind of situation. And I read the 9301 ordinance, and I know that, I'm getting into 20 feet of the setback, but that's my case, it's only for safety related matters. And when I bought this house back in 2010, I did not have my sister with me. And in 2012, as a matter of fact, she's my wife's younger sister. So we took the responsibility of taking care of her in 2012. And, we tried to work things out for 3 years. And it's really, really, really becoming cumbersome and very troublesome. So that's why I'm requesting a variance. If you folks can grant it, I would really appreciate it. Otherwise,
Thank you, sir. John, any questions to the applicant?
Yes, John Arnott, I do. Thank you, sir, for a summary. It's very good. I was looking at the plot. I have a number of questions for you.
Sure.
Do you know, and I think maybe Ron, you can answer this the same, Ron, do you know of any exceptions to the setback rule in this particular neighborhood?
In general or specific variances?
In general, do you have any?
Not that I am aware of, and I did search past case history going back as far as I could search in our records, and I didn't see any record of variances granted.
Okay. And your plot is directly on the build line right now. That's correct, sir?
Front part is, not the back.
The front is.
My garage is almost touching the boundary line.
Okay.
Is that what you meant to ask?
Actually, the rear setback, you're at the 25-foot mark right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I see that you're looking for 150 square feet. Is that correct? It's
270.
Was it 270?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
15 feet deep, 18 feet wide.
Oh, I see it. 15 feet wide. I see it. What about the side setbacks? Are you at the...
From the proposed addition to my neighbor's fence on the east, I got at least 25 feet. And to the addition proposed to the neighbors on my west I think it's more than 30 feet. From my proposed addition to the back fence, it's about I say 9 feet at the narrowest point, since I'm not on a regular plat, and on the widest is about 10 feet to the back.
But the existing house is it just 5 feet or so on either side? That's about all you have? How wide? Do you have any additional room on the sides?
I sure do. On west side of the property. I got like area to expand. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I am.
But not on the east side.
Okay. The stairway going to the second floor, is it a straight stairway up?
No, it is not. It makes a landing and then goes up.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thanks, sir.
Michael Biggs?
Only one question. Have you explored, even though it's a stairwell, have you investigated any other alternatives as related to lifts that are made for that
Yes, sir,
purpose?
I surely did. And the thing of it is, in case of emergency, you cannot use those things because power may be out. So it is useless spending $30,000 on that, and then, you cannot use it.
Okay.
Mr. O'Pipri?
Lou Peppery, having driven by there, isn't there a sunroom or something on the back of the house right now?
Not on my property.
Or maybe I looked at the wrong place. When I look at this, we're here right now.
Which exhibit are you looking at, sir?
Well,
Exhibit A?
we have an overhead view that I'm looking
see.
at here. Let me ask, and I asked this of Ron, and he said he's not aware of any, but I know I've had that problem back where I am on the backside of
Okay.
around Harmony Park there. I know we have a 10-foot utility easement that runs across the back of our property. If that easement is, you're either right on the easement, if there is one, there may not be. I can't, what was your answer to me today?
Well, the plat does not show any easements in the rear. Typically, in a subdivision like this, if there was an easement by separate instrument, it's usually very rare. And if there was one by separate instrument that came in after the subdivision, we would have had a record of it at the city, which we do not. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
That was one of my concerns.
Okay.
That and how close you would be to the property line, right?
Candace?
Candace Vogt, is there any other possible place that you could put this bedroom or any other place on the bottom floor that you could expand or change? Or what's your plan B?
Plan B would be to convert my office into a bedroom with an entrance from the side of the house for the caretaker, medical caretaker, just in case in future if need arises, for that person to get an access in and out, or the EMS folks if it is needed, God forbid. So, they can get in, get out without wasting any time. That could be plan B. But we have not really explored that. So, at this time, a spontaneous answer, so don't hold me for on that. Because we have not yet really explored, because on the lower level, I got like a master bedroom and the suite, plus a formal dining, formal living, and a family room and a kitchen. I don't have a whole lot of room to convert anything into a bedroom situation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Bloomsburg?
No questions.
I have no questions at this time. Are there any public comments to this?
Yes, there is. Billy Poitras.
Please come forward. State your name and address, please.
My name's Billy Poitras, and I live at 309 Village Trail, and I've been living there since '97. And was wondering, I've heard a little bit about the easement back there, about the electrical going through there and stuff like that. My electrical goes directly below my yard, right through the backyard. And looking out on my back porch, when I look towards the west, I see pretty tree lines, gazebos with flowers growing on it. If this building's constructed, I won't get that view no more. And for that reason, I think my value of my house may drop some if I decide to sell it and the people walk out back and see a big brick house, because everything else is perfectly lined up. And I was wanting to know, I never heard nothing about the water drainage, which way the water's going to drain when they build that, building there, if they do build it. That was some of my concerns, and I oppose of it. I don't want it I'm against it, okay? Thank you.
Sir, may I ask you to step forward and show me on the exhibit so everybody can go to page 83 of 99. That's the subject property. This your home or this your home?
I'm on the east side.
So you're on lot number 26. Thank you. So does everybody have a thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
If you go to plat exhibit, page 83 of 99, he is in number 26. Robbie, any more comments from the public?
No, there is not.
We ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, we are closing the public hearing for both line items and moving to discussion on the first agenda item, and that is the setback.
Chairman, if I may,
Did I get it backwards?
No, I just wanted to mention that the way this agenda is set up is now that we're in the regular session, both items, the fence special exception and the setback, are placed together intentionally so you can do the vote. You can kind of consider this as one, but we'll just need two separate votes.
On the mud or the two separate items?
They're two separate items. We'll need two separate votes, but you can consider it and discuss it now as a single item if you'd wish.
Yeah, we can do. John, anything on either item that we can discuss at the same time?
Well, I'd like to make a comment first.
Yes, sir.
John Arnott, I think it's very informative that the plant has been here before the inception of Trophy Club, and that is an existing facility and when we didn't have any plot. I think regarding the setback, I think that's very material. I also went down the criteria around for hardship, and it does seem to play to, I agree that it appears to be a hardship in a unique situation, and that, but there is a public good here, keeping this as it is, and anything that would, enforcing the setback, I believe, would be a hardship on not only the mud, but also on the citizens at this time. I do have a comment regarding the screening and fencing. Although I complete agreement that it needs to be secure, I'm very concerned about the citizens and the subdivision across the street, especially those who are going to be butting up against the back of it, that I would be in favor of a solid fence. We've seen more reasonable than chain link, in that it's 8 foot in height. It gives security as defined by the mud official. You have 1 strand of barbed wire. I think that would be preferable in my mind to people living and investing, up to $800,000 or more in homes to butt up to a facility that has a chain link fence. I don't see the absolute need to increase the security by having chain link fence with strands of barbed wire. That's my comments.
And we are in regular session now.
Yes. And just, you had some folks that wanted to speak on the special exception. You can do that.
That's where I was
whenever
going
you're
with this. There were people, Robbie, that signed up to speak at this point.
Yes. The first one is Bill Rose.
This is Mike Biggs. Can I ask one question here? We're dealing with the encroachment item, the first item on the agenda in regular session. We aren't talking about fences right now.
No.
You can discuss it as one item if you wish. That's certainly the prerogative of the board. Now, when you vote, you'll need to vote separately on it.
I understand, but I just soon hear kill one dog first.
Okay.
And not confuse
That's certainly
people
your
talking
prerogative.
about fences and setbacks and stuff.
Okay.
Just the agenda is set up that way too. I just
Sure.
got to follow that. Okay.
You're on fences.
I knew that. That's why I said that.
You're on. Both of you are on the fence. So,
Nobody
Michael,
likes a setback.
Before we get to the vote, I just want to remind you we have 2 alternates here. So One of those alternates will be the fifth
about
vote.
to
We just
announce
need to
that.
decide who that is.
When we get to the voting, only 5 of us will be voting on the setback and the fence for 311. So, do you have any questions on 311 or the setback, Mr. O'Pipri?
If we're talking about the setback for the mud plant, the reason I asked the question about where the lines were, I think you're very optimistic at 6 months to replan this, right? I have the advantage of having been around when the thing was being revamped once on the mud board, and I think you're being very optimistic. This is setback only. Let me tell the audience, this is setback only. The things there now has been since '74, I believe. I can see no reason not to allow the setback a variance.
No
The
comment.
vote?
Nope.
No comment. Well, at this time, I would entertain a motion regarding the setback for the utility district. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove
All right, I'll make
the
this,
request, ordinance or hearing 2015-0640-T. Do I hear a motion to allow the setback?
this is Lou Pipri. I'll make a motion that we allow the setback to the treatment plant.
Ron, did I say that right? Allow the setback or waive the setback?
The correct language would be a variance to the setback requirement.
Do it again.
I will redo my motion. Okay. We're looking at 604T, and this is to allow the setback variance.
Correct.
Okay.
Do I hear the second?
I second. Mike Biggs, second.
Any questions? Now, who is going to sit out on the vote?
I'll sit out.
All right, Mr. Biggs is going to sit out.
Wait a minute.
You can't. You
Mr. Biggs is a regular member. It would have to be an alternate.
Sit out.
You
I will,
can't sit-
I'll sit out on this one.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor of the motion made to allow the setback variance? Please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. At this time, I would look for a motion and discussion regarding the variance requested for 311 Village Trail, 20150641.
Chairman, the next item is actually the fence encroachment. We put those next to each other for that reason, so.
We're back to the mud. Let's get the right one. All right, there we go. All right, and I did read the right one. The special exemption covering zoning ordinance Article 7, Section 7.01C1, comma 7.01D, and 701K3 to allow the fence to extend beyond the front elevation of the primary structure and allow a waiver of screening and wall requirements and to allow a waiver to the fence materials for property located on 10.5 acres located in the Mary Medlin Survey, Abstract 832 on Junction Way. Do I have a motion? Or discussion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, discussion.
You have some citizens too that would like to speak as
And
well.
yes, it's your turn.
Really this time.
Please state your name.
My name is Danny Mayer. I live at 2201 Prestwick Avenue. How are you? I would like to cut the fencing into 2 separate issues. One being the fence on the south side and the one being the fence on the northeast side next to the residential area. The problem is any variances that you grant today is a permanent variance. So no matter what happens in the future, you can't can't unring the bell. On the south side, If and when that right-of-way ever gets used, whether it be now or whether it be 10 years from now or whether it be never, I would suggest on the south side that you grant a temporary variance until such time as that right-of-way is utilized. Obviously, the thinking is that it will eventually be the loop road because nobody else is going to drive down there. So unless the loop road ever gets finished, I don't see any reason to have the mud go to the expense of building that fence now. But if you give it a permanent variance, when that road gets developed, they'll never have to build one. So that's my suggestion on that. On the northeast side, I'm in real estate, and we sell some homes in Canterbury Hills. Some of those lots over there now are going, because they back up to core property, some of those lots approach $200,000. Some of the homes that are going to be built over there be between $700,000 and $800,000. By not building a fence over there, you lose the visual barrier, you lose the sound barrier, and you lose the odor barrier. And even though they're not constructing over there now, they own that property. So again, in 10 years, if they decide to build over and they have to keep expanding this plant, that's not very good. Also, I will say that the hardship that's claimed of the mature oak trees, if y'all have not been over there, that's just a big stand of scrub oaks. There's nothing over there that you would call a mature oak tree. And when they build those homes on those lots that back up to this property line, they're going to remove hundreds of those trees. If you haven't been out there, it's just, those of you that are from Texas know what a big stand of scrub oaks looks like. I mean, a bunch of little trees about that big around. So there's no hardship on the environment to put a solid fence back there. I do not think under any circumstance, because of the residential area, that variance should be granted at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rose?
Bill Rose, 219 Inverness. In your packets, I drew out a page, starts off spatial exception request details, and I thought I'd use that to speak to. Number 1 says to allow a fence to be constructed beyond the front elevation of the primary structure. I think that's important, and that part be approved. The next one is that the applicant requests the existing barbed wire fence be allowed to remain in current location around the perimeter of the wastewater treatment plant. I think that's probably a yes until the road construction occurs. My concern here with the 6-foot fence is, once again, as the general manager has expressed, is safety. I'm pretty sure that with a rug, I can come up to the 6-foot fence with the 3 layers of barbed wire and get over it without getting a scratch. I think that the priority of fencing, if you were to look at the security side of the equation, is the same as it is in the statute that you read, Mr. President. I think the number 1 priority is an 8-foot solid fence with a barbed wire on top of it. And I think that is the appropriate structure for the south part of this property. I think in the long run, I think an 8-foot fence around the entire perimeter of the government use property that's currently the plant is probably in the best interest of the safety of the citizens as this area develops. Now that may be a time down frame before that fence would occur. To waive, looking at 3 now, to waive its entirety, the screening requirements between the subject property and the existing single-family residential zone property within PD 31, I think that's a significant error. You can look across the street and see a very tall wood fence. That wood fence runs up along properties along Summit Cove, and I think that there's absolutely no reason that the applicant shouldn't be required to construct an appropriate fence in the designated area. Looking on the next page talks about authority, where the literal enforcement of this ordinance would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship, and relief granted would not be contrary to public interest, but would do substantial justice and would be in accordance with the spirit of this ordinance. I think it fails all tests. I think the fencing as requested, the 6-foot fencing with the barbed wire, as well as the fencing between the residents and the current commercial CR designated property. We have no idea where that property's going, and I really think
Your
it would be a
time is
mistake
up.
to do that. As far as, one more thing, denial of permit would result in unnecessary hardship to the owner seeking it. The net of liabilities, the MUD's current fund balance is $3.7 million. There is no financial hardship here, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's signed up?
Yes, one more. Jim Thomas.
Jim Thomas?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jim Thomas, 7 Meadowbrook Lane. John, if you
And I
had a
may
chan-
point out that Mr. Thomas is a member of the Mud Board.
Yes. John, have you had a chance to go down Indian Creek and see the lots down there in the plant?
Yes, I have. Thank
Okay,
you.
there are no homes that butt up against the plant. I just wanted to correct you there. If you look at Indian Creek, right next to the homes along Indian Creek is the country club's maintenance facility. The country club has built an 8-foot wall all the way down their maintenance facility, all the way down. Matter of fact, the only thing left at the Indian Creek is, it looks like 3 lots, and then it curves to the right. If you go to those 3 lots, the only thing you can see, I was out there on the back side of all 3 of them. The only thing you can see is the back fence to the country club's maintenance facility. It's almost 100 yards of trees to see the fencing in the sewer plant. Totally unobservable. Cannot see it. Now, if you go to the other side, you look at the plats. Hershey has got 4 lots. It's 400 Hershey, 402, 404, 406 Hershey, and that's a cul-de-sac. Right across the street from the street itself is that par 3 golf course that runs along that. On the other side of the golf course is something around 60 feet of trees between that and the fence. You need a spyglass to see the fence from those 4 houses. It's totally invisible. Cannot see them. The only of the homes that have a view is if you step back one more street to Hogan's Drive. Hogan's Drive curves around to the left, and there are 2 houses in that curve that also will have a view of that golf course, of that green itself. And I was back there and took pictures as well, and totally cannot see any of the fence line. So here's my point. There's nothing that butts up against it. The houses on Hershey are approximately 130 yards away, from that fence, buffered by the street, buffered by the golf course lot, buffered by about 30 to 40 feet of heavy strand of trees, totally invisible. And the other houses do not buffer at all and have almost 100 feet of trees between. Yeah, if you look up here, you see the yellow line?
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me for walking away from the mic, I'll try to talk loud. If you come into that lot where the fence runs all the way to the bottom of that yellow, if you come into one of those 3 lots and look back, what you see is the back fence of the country club property. You cannot see the back fence of the sewer plant from any of those 3 lots. They're totally buffered by a huge amount of trees in here. Totally impossible to see it. So there's no, John, the only point I wanted to make, there are no homes.
Please step to the mic. They're having a hard time hearing you.
The only point I wanted to make, John, there are no homes that butt up against the sewer plant.
Okay, well, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Mike Biggs. If you're talking about running down Indian Creek, there are 2 homes there now, one on the corner and one next to, because we ran the one on the corner a variance before. Then there's 5 more lots down there.
Right.
And the wall that's there now, as near as I could tell when I walked it out there, goes down halfway through the next to last lot, and the last lot would be affected by not having this wall you're talking about. Question 2, if
And the last lot is the one where it curves.
right, in the kind of a cul-de-sac
Yeah,
there, if that one
yeah.
goes way back to the telephone pole and the pin back there.
Right.
But also, this yellow line shows to be right behind those lots. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you guys, you're getting ready to approve a plat tonight? on this thing, right? Now, there's a requirement for a 40-foot buffer, is there not, on that new plat, that on the property that the water district owns?
The Code of Ordinances requires a 40-foot landscape buffer, and the plat does show that.
It does show that.
Yes.
So we haven't talked about that yet. So from that yellow line, there's another 40 feet back of landscape buffer. Will be after they approve the plat tonight, since we approved the other thing. Okay. So I think that's an important fact too. We're talking about this fence scenario down there. You're gonna have 40 feet of landscape buffer required because it was platted now. So you've got another 40 feet of trees there and they can't build on that, can they?
No, sir.
Okay, and whatever property's left back there to build on, as I look at the surveys and stuff, a lot of that property's in the floodway. You can't build on it anyway. I look at you. I'm not expecting you to answer the question, but am I correct in those points?
That's correct. A lot of it is below. It's called a flowage easement. It's really kind of the spillway level of Lake Grapevine.
They couldn't build on anyway. So we got 40 feet they can't build on, and then a bunch of the rest of the property they can't build on. So that might mitigate the noise, odor, and whatever thing's going to leak over from that plant that's around the corner from those two houses that aren't going to be screened if we don't allow that. That's my point.
Michael, I'd like to add one other thing. If you look at the yellow line, the MUD made a decision two and a half years ago. Originally, Indian Creek was going to come down, and originally there was a road to the left with a cul-de-sac in the road. There were 4 lots built around that cul-de-sac, and those 4 lots are all to the left of that yellow line, all to the left of it. The MUD bought those 4 lines to be an additional buffer away from those $500,000 houses. So forgetting the woods that are there, there are 4 lots that we bought that are an additional buffer in between the plant and those homes.
Can I ask you a question? So let's see if I can understand what you said. I appreciate the correction. So what you're saying is that yellow line, the proposed chain link fence, correct?
No, the yellow line is supposedly an 8-foot stucco fence.
That's required by ordinance.
That's required by ordinance.
Okay, great. And that where the green is right now, to the right of that is the home lot, the plotted lots for 3 new homes, correct? I drove down there this morning too and looked at it.
I'm guessing it's three lots.
3 lots.
And I'm
okay.
guessing.
And then to the left of the yellow line, you're saying that there's a 40-foot buffer that you'll have to keep from that line. Is that what I understand it? Did you, Mike?
And it's actually more than that because we have bought 4 lots, and I think they're a lot more than 40 feet deep.
Okay. All right.
And then after that, you've got almost 70, 80 yards of trees between the back of that buffer. So, I mean, it's just a huge space of land between the back of the sewer plant and the back of those 3 to 4 lots.
Okay. But you're proposing to have a solid fence. Is that what you just said?
No, we're asking to have a waiver that we don't have to put.
All right, we're getting to a point where the person that should be speaking about this is Ms. McKnight, who represents the MUD. This was public comment.
Thanks.
Do you have, John, if you would direct your comments to Ms. McKnight.
Question for you is,
Sure.
what are you proposing to be the composition of the fence on that yellow line?
The yellow line is the screening that we're requesting that to be waived. A special exception to not have anything there. That's what we're requesting.
Would you repeat that? You said not to have anything there.
To have, yes, to have no, no screening, no fencing, anything put up there. It's a wooded area, and we're wanting to just leave it in its vegetative state as it is right now.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Biggs? Jennifer, we got more.
Keep running back and forth.
I understand what the ordinance says. I understand what you're asking for. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood here that there was a 40-foot buffer coming up there, landscape buffer, now that this plat may or may not be approved tonight. That's what's proposed. But there's a lot of other lots that go around over there that back up to the, I guess it's the Corps of Engineers land, right? And there's no requirements for anything there. I'm not using that as leverage here, but it seems to me some of those houses that we've looked at on variances, they actually have wrought iron fences back there to enjoy the woods. You know, I mean, it's kind of interesting to me. And most of the developers back there seem to put up wood fences anyway, even up against the golf course's fence there. We had a problem with that too because they left this much room in between it. But I'm assuming that
noticed
they're
that when
selling
I
a
was
fence with
taking
every one of these
photos.
houses up against those woods anyway. So there's going to be some security there. There's going to be some screening, but it's not going to be 8-foot white masonry, apparently. So
Yes.
All
It's
right.
actually there was no way to get good photos that does it justice, but it's actually very, very pretty back there. And if I personally were living back there, I would rather have those beautiful woods behind me than a big concrete wall.
okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Pipri?
Lou Pipri. Okay, so this may be lengthy. Let me see if I got this straight. The diagram that I'm looking at is our page
47 of 99.
30. It's 36 of 99, right? And what it shows here is a red line, which is if memory serves, is the existing fence for the current property, the plant, the way it sits today. It also shows a yellow line outlining all of the property that the MUD owns back there. Right. Okay. My question is your request that you do not fence in anything but the treatment plant itself, and that the 3 or 4 lots you own back there would be left, call it wild or natural?
Yes, we would like to leave the existing fence as it is for now. I mean, it doesn't need to go anywhere. It doesn't have to be changed. So we're asking that we be allowed to leave our existing fence there and add no additional fence or screening. That's what we're requesting.
Okay, so you're adding no additional fencing.
Yes.
Okay. The second part of this is that what, in your opinion, what are the chances that that plant would, by necessity, have to extend back into that wooded area?
I don't foresee that ever happening. The only thing left that we may have to do someday, way into the future, is build what they call an EQ basin. And that is like the water tanks that you see out here, the ground storage tanks. That's all it is a large ground storage tank that instead of holding fresh water, it holds not such fresh water. And because you have to keep a steady stream at a specific rate through the MBRs. So if additional, we were to, the plant that we've designed is designed for build out of all of Trophy Club, as well as some area in Solana that's still undeveloped that's in our district. So I don't foresee ever needing an additional capacity out there, other than if maybe people start using a lot more wastewater, or maybe more commercial than is originally expected comes into town. At some time, it may have to have an EQ basin, but that would be built on that existing footprint. And there's something that's important to know about why we like to stay on this in the same footprint. When you go out of your boundaries of where you're originally built, you have to get a brand new permit through the TCEQ. It's not just we don't need any type of an amendment or anything as long as you stay in that footprint. But if you step outside of your original plant site by any way whatsoever, it's a huge process, and it's an expensive process to go through TCEQ and get that new permit. So the plan forever is to stay within what we have, but we do need that buffer around it. As I said, we have to have a 150-foot buffer from any residential. So that 150 feet from outside our plant can't ever be built on.
Okay, Ron, question for you. The government use property is the current plant site, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The CR, commercial residential, is the expanded part. in the
Commercial
back.
recreation, actually.
Right. Okay. Commercial recreational. So therefore, if in some date when we're all gone here, right, that or some emergency happens, that this plant needs to expand beyond its boundaries, besides the TCEQ problems, we would be right back here at this board to look at screening and whatever it is they're going to have to do if they expand outside of the original area.
Well, the conditional use permit that was recently granted by the council, which allows specifically the use of a wastewater treatment plant, is all within the GU portion of the property.
Okay.
And if they expand within that GU portion, provided they meet all the other codes at the time of that expansion, there would be no additional.
But if it becomes necessary to go past the GU portion, we're right back into this board or some
Right,
other.
there would need to be, because commercial recreation doesn't allow the current
Okay.
use of water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants. So yeah, it would require a rezoning of some kind.
All right. So here's another question for you. What about the security, keeping the security of the 40, 150 foot, whatever it is, past the current boundaries of the plant? Considering that that's all woods and stuff now. Is there a requirement that you would have to meet with the
To secure the
with
buffer
fencing,
area?
right? With
No.
fencing or anything
No,
like that?
the buffer area does not have to be fenced.
Okay.
Just the plant site itself.
Right. That's where the 3 lots are. And if you'll bear with me, down in the front of the plant, right? Because I took real serious what the residents wrote. Danny had Mr. Mayor had some good points, right? So I got concerned about what happened back there from a screening standpoint. Today, I went and I looked at what happens if we build a loop road. And I walked the plant, that junction as far as I could go in front of the plant now, right? I will tell you that up to the creek, back there, the only thing that's going to be back there is going to be that plant, what looks like a town maintenance barn, and the golf cart deal there. If we require the mud to go, in my mind anyhow, right, the mud to go and build a wall in front of the treatment plant, then we better look at requiring whatever that little maintenance barn is and the country club into doing the same thing, right? Because they're right there. So I'll finish this up with this. I don't know how much it would cost to build that little screening wall back there, but I really don't see any problem as long as they stay within the bounds of the GU things and keep the fences in accordance with the current laws and TCEQ's requirements for that. That's all I got to say about that. And that was a lot of thought that had to go in the research for stuff like that.
Candace?
And by the way, I would like to thank the citizens for their input, because when I first heard about this, I really didn't think too much about it. You caused me to do a lot of research and a lot of thinking before that I would have never done before that needed to be done.
Thank you. Candace?
Yes, I have a question. So let's say in the future that there is some type of, like I said, expansion, as we were talking about. You know, I know you said that probably isn't going to happen, but we never know what's going to happen in the future. You can't really guess that. So is there a way for us to, when we're voting on it, to say as long as there is no expansion from the current area, that, or it needs to come back to the board if there is? Is there, you see what I'm saying? Sorry.
You could actually, as far as the special exception goes, it would need to apply to the request as it's requested. Now, you know, through the course of time, obviously codes change. The town will probably end up amending ordinances here and there. It could really be related to fencing, could be related to screening. Once those codes change, anything that's not currently conforming to that new code becomes legal non-conforming. In other words, I can obviously continue to operate, but if they were to go to expand, then it would have to meet that new code requirement. That's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Is the plant predates the actual existence of the town, and it began once the town was created. Then it became a legal non-conforming issue and went to expand, and then had to be brought up to current standards. So only with a code amendment in the actual codes that affect everybody would it then affect the plant, if it did in fact create a more restrictive standard that isn't in place today, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It makes sense. Okay, so whatever we have today, it's not locked in forever and ever, amen, that they don't ever have to put up a screening wall, so.
What you're granting, as it's written on the agenda,
Okay.
is a special exception to those specific code requirements that are listed on the agenda, all the way down to the actual subsection. So as long as those don't change and what they've requested to do doesn't change based on what the board approves, then it'll last as long as that lasts.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm definitely supportive of granting the special exception for the screening wall along the north, along those 3 lots. I think the view of the trees is definitely preferable to what a solid wall in that location would be. What I'm less comfortable with is the chain link fence along what could potentially be the future loop road. I don't know if that's ever going to get built or not, but obviously council thinks there's a chance, which is why they are requiring the right of way. So I was hoping we could discuss some thoughts you might have as to what else you would be willing to do with regard to the chain link fence. Have you thought about any dense landscaping in front of it? Any alternatives to the chain link? What else could be done there? Because if it does turn into the loop road, obviously a lot of people are going to be traveling along that.
No, I had not thought of that, but I would like to ask a question maybe to Ron that might help answer. I mean, if I get my question answered, maybe it will set some of their concerns. I don't know about here, but where I live, I had a fence at my house, but we had to replace it because it got old and bad. I had to go get a permit to do that, and that required that I upgrade my fence to a new type of fence. That's my question. I mean, I can't see. In my lifetime, I have never had a fence last my lifetime. So I feel that at some point, the district's going to have to ask for, we're going to have to replace that fence. You have to replace a fence no matter where you are. So my question is, at that time, does it require you to have the new type of fence, I suppose, is what I'm asking.
You mind me responding directly to the applicant? Okay. What's triggering the chain, because the chain link fence has been there for a while. What's triggering that to be upgraded is the fact that the entire site is being upgraded through the improvements to the plant. This is a non-residential use, so typically you'll have that type of situation kick in on a site. So with the granting of the special exception, if it does get granted, it would allow the chain link fence to remain, assuming it gets granted as it's requested, it would allow that chain link fence to remain, and then really would allow it to be replaced with another chain link fence at some point in the future when that time comes, as long as it is in the exact same spot, same height, all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
But it would not be in the same spot if you build the road, correct? I mean, unless we can
If the road
block
was
in
to
the
be
right-of-way.
constructed in the right-of-way that is to be dedicated on the final plat, then yeah, it would need to be moved whenever that occurred.
Yes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, on the Article 7 of Development Designs and Standards, that if in Section 7.01 B, subsection A, maintenance and replacement, again, a permit is required if 30% or more of that fence is to be replaced. And at that time, it would be up to the town to make up their mind, and you may be back here, we may be all gone and turned into worm feed by that time, but it may require the mud to come back and ask for an exemption, if I'm correct, to remain a chain link fence or any future ordinance, correct?
Well, if they just want to replace the fence as it is, at some point, if it gets structurally unsound, they need to replace it, and the special exception is granted tonight, they don't need to come back for another special exception. They can rebuild it
Just
as
with
is.
a permit.
Now, if town ordinances change,
That's where I was going.
I don't know what that would be. For example, I'll just throw this out as a hypothetical. Let's say the town requires a special type of chain link fence that'd be painted blue, and that's a new code requirement for any new fence constructed after this date. Well, then they'd have to meet that requirement. And again, that's a hypothetical. I'm just saying that's how that would kick in at that point.
Thank you, Ron. Now, a request was made by one of the speakers that a temporary variance be issued. Is there such an animal that we could throw a temporary variance out there and approve part of it?
Just to clarify on that, there couldn't be any time restriction or time limits added in this case. The granting of the special exception by the board would be basically all or nothing in terms of the request.
Could we add conditions to it?
You can add conditions. It just couldn't be like the fence has to go away in 20 years, something to that effect.
So back to my question. Have you thought of anything like landscaping or any alternatives you'd be willing to do along the loop road, the future potential loop road?
No, I mean, really, we haven't, because we really didn't know there was going to be a road there till we were already, completed our design, and so we really haven't thought of that.
I would hate to vote in support of something that could potentially impact the town in the future if we do build that loop road. Is there something would you consider if we don't vote to grant the special exception in that location? Would you just build the required?
Well, let me say something, because if I can get this to go back, I don't know why it keeps doing this. Okay, you see on this drawing, or let me go back to this one. You see that the right-of-way is going to actually come right up to our pavement. So I don't really know how we could, and then on the other side of the right-of-way is also pavement. So I can't in my mind really figure out how we could do landscaping through there, because it's actually part of the drive and the fire lane. So I don't think that would work. I think it would, if something is required, it would have to be some sort of a fence, a wooden fence, or a wall of some sort would be all you could do through there, I suppose. And I think that someone said something about going back, and I guess that the requirement would be we would have to put this fence or screen up all the way back across our property, which does go in front of the maintenance facility, that the town's maintenance, it's the district's property and the district's barn, but the town parks is using that building at this time. So that wall would actually make it very difficult for them to get in and out of their building.
Ron, are we saying that I thought this was just for the front setback. I thought this was just for the front setback area.
One of the special exception requests is to allow the fence to extend beyond the front line of the primary structure, which effectively there wouldn't be any front setback requirement for the fence, is what they're requesting. So in other words, where you see the blue line at the bottom there, that's part of the existing chain link fence. In other words, so it can remain where it is. And then the other special exception is that it can remain as a chain link fence.
Right, just along the southern portion of the site.
So really to sum up the request, it's really leave the status quo, leave it as is, not really needing to change anything. In other words, just leave it as it currently exists.
Anything else?
That's it.
Can I ask one more question too? Or two?
Michael?
Actually, Mike Biggs. when you were talking, when she was asking you about, can we do it in time frames and things like that, based on Mr. Mayor's comment about temporary fencing, is it possible to grant it a temporary fencing there until such time, if ever, the loop road is constructed?
What you could say is that it shall only apply to its current location. This special exception shall only apply to the fence in its current location. That way, if the road ever was built and it required that the fence be moved back, and obviously there would be other logistical issues with that, but then the special exception would no longer apply in that case.
One other question or comment or question in general for anyone. It seems to me that the loop road, if ever built conceptually, it has to go over the government land, basically, right? And what are the odds on that happening? And then giving you some land out there and the flowway to say build a road over? It'd have to be a bridge, wouldn't it? I mean, is the city prepared to build a bridge over that? If that's, or is anyone working on getting that approval right now, or is it just somewhere way off in there, which should have probably been done a long time ago when it could have gone through another way, through the golf course maybe, without affecting that? Does anyone know if anything's going on that?
We have probably better odds at getting all 5 numbers in the Powerball number.
Right. Right. That's why I'm trying to figure out if this discussion needs to continue much longer about chain link or not, so.
Well, insofar as it relates to the possibility of a road being constructed, that's certainly within the realm here, because that would be affected by it, because there is a right-of-way that's going to be dedicated here. But as far as the logistics of connecting the road, that's a whole nother issue for a different board or commission, or actually the council in that case.
3 or 4 boards from now, 3 or 4 decades from now, it seems like. Depends on who's in power, federal level. That's all I have. I just was wondering if anyone knew particularly if anyone's working on that or not.
Thank you, Mike.
Comment? I do like
Yes.
the idea of making the approval contingent upon the current state of the facility, and in the future, if at some time they do need to build the right of way, then this could be revisited if we could find some wording that would help that happen. Ron.
Could you state your name, please?
Aisha Boomsma.
Thank you.
Now, would we be at this point closing this and looking for, because we are at the discussion phase, looking for a motion to move on this
Correct.
request?
Again, you've got 3 specific requests here, 3 different code sections. So, you can motion it based on, obviously it'd be a single vote, but just how you would like to approach those 3 requests. You can approve them as is, or you can approve with conditions. And in the case of what Board Member Boomsma just said, you can condition that the fence on the south property line be allowed to encroach beyond the front line of the building and be composed of chain link material until such time that the fence was to be relocated, and you could just leave it at that. And then, they would obviously need to come back for a special exception at that point if they wanted to rebuild it as chain link. The code right now that would be a default, automatic. If it was to change in the future, I would think it would be best if the board just kind of left that open, because especially if it's 20 years from now, we don't know what the regulatory apparatus is going to be at that point.
So we're looking for a motion to cover all 3 requests by the MUD at this point.
That is correct.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we get one more opportunity to speak under the rules.
We've closed that portion of the public hearing.
For the vote, I do believe we get an opportunity to speak again.
I do see the town attorney available.
I don't know which one's working. Under the council rules of procedure, which apply to the board, public gets to speak before and after the motion, but before the vote.
All right. No motion has been made yet. So when we call for the question, we will look for comments. So, I am looking.
Jeez. Okay, what did you say again? I didn't write that all down.
Right.
What he said. Encroach on the front building line.
You could motion that if it relates to the south property line fence, that you're granting the special exception as requested, subject to such time that, or as it applies to the current location of the fence. if the fence location was to change, then the special exception would no longer apply, and you just basically be specifying that. And I would recommend you just leave it at that, because if it does have to move because of the right of way, for example, if that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, I don't know if there'll be a special exception. It might be a different type of waiver authority at that time.
So at this time, I'm waiting for our motion to be written out so we can state it properly.
Okay. Do I have to cover, so I have to cover also the fence to the north too, correct? Is that the first?
The screening fence, the fence material, and then the location of the fence in the front setback.
3 points on this.
What's the third? This one, the special exception for the south, the one on the north, and what's the other one I need to do?
The material itself
Material.
of chain link
It would be
and barbed
6 foot
wire.
6-foot chain link with 3-strand barbed wire, as recommended by TCEQ.
Okay. I'll give this a shot. Okay. Pesha Boomsma, I would like to make a motion that the board grant the special exception for the to waive the variance to waive the requirement for a screening wall at the northeastern portion of the facility, and that we grant the special exception as requested to encroach on the front building line for the 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire, as long as it remains in its current location. Did I miss
And?
anything? What else?
And the material requirement
Material
of barbed
required.
wire
And-
and chain link for the entire fence as it
Entire
currently
fence.
exists.
Oh, and grant the special exception for the entire fence to use the 6-foot chain linked and barbed wire. Is that good enough?
That's good.
Okay.
Do we have that? Do I hear a second?
Lou Peppery, second.
Now we have call for the question and open comments. Mr. Mayor, you requested to speak.
Just as it relates, thank you for the southern portion, I think that's fine. On the northeast portion, I think you haven't been, I think the MUD has misrepresented the 4 lots. Those 4 lots were not purchased by the MUD as an additional barrier. They were unsure the time they purchased. We can go back to the minutes if need be. They weren't sure how much land they were going to need, so they purchased those from the developer. I was on the council at the time. They decided they didn't need those, wanted to resell those lots. They didn't have, we had since replatted that property. They ended up suing the developer to get access, and then they lost that case in Denton court. No one knows what that property's gonna do up there, and I think you're gonna make a huge mistake if you allow them not to put a screening wall up there, because you tie the town to that forever, for perpetuity, no matter what happens within the property that they own, that the MUD owns. They weren't sure they weren't gonna have to do it with the plant that they're expanding now. That's why they bought those 4 lots. And I think you're going to make a huge mistake if you give this variance where they never have to build a fence there. Thank you.
Ms. McKnight, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I will just correct that. That is not true. We did not file a lawsuit against the developer there. We did ask the town not to allow them to replat, blocking access. Had they not, we would not be here dedicating 50-foot right-of-way, because we would have been adjacent to a public road. So by the town blocking that area where the rule of the platting that we were told why this was brought upon us is because we were not adjacent to public right-of-way. So now we must dedicate it. Had we maintained that at that northern end where it was adjacent to the roadway, we wouldn't be replatting at this time, or we would not, we would not be dedicating right-of-way. But I just mostly want to clarify that we did not file a lawsuit against the developer. We filed what they call a lis pendus until we could get this straightened out, and did not lose. We negotiated with the developer on some items, and we both agreed to do away with that. So it was all in good faith. Unfortunately, the right-of-way dedication is a direct result of us being, the access from that area being blocked in.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight. Mr. Rose, you have a comment.
Yes, very quickly. Once again, speaking of the property to the north, the fence that's under discussion, I think there's one thing that's being missed here. And that's being missed is that there is no control. The sales pitch has been it's native property. It's not been developed. It's forested. And the pitch is that it's going to be that way in perpetuity. There's nothing in what you have before you that makes that a fact. It's CR. I believe it'll stay CR, and so it would have all of those things that could occur under CR occur in that property. Having said that, I think that what you've done on the south with the fence, if the fence is moved, might be instructive as you look at the fence to the north, in that in your statement or in your waiver require that if the use of that property is changed from native habitat, that it requires to come back for a fence discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Ron, if that property to the north on the exhibit above the GU property as rated CR, would that have to come to the Planning and Zoning Committee or Commission and the Town Council for any special use?
Depends on the use of the property. If the current use that we're talking about tonight is the wastewater treatment plant wanted to expand into that zoning category, it would require a change of zoning.
So we have some protections in order to keep that from being used for anything else.
That's correct. Commercial recreation is really most of the parks in the town are zoned commercial recreation, and it's geared toward that type of land use. So again, what you have now with the wastewater treatment plant is only allowed in the GU zoning category with approval of a conditional use permit.
So they own that property in that CR section, and if the MUDs would like to build a park in that area, we would be open to it.
A park is a permitted use in that category.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one question. And if, let's say, the MUD did expand someday and they rezoned that property, this whole screening issue would be revisited through the site plan process, or and this special exception wouldn't last for forever if the property changed, is what I'm saying.
That is correct. That would be looked at as almost an entirely new type of use. It'd be like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
Yes.
This would go away.
Lou?
Lou Pippery. Mr. Mayor, you're not aware of one other thing that keeps sticking in my mind. We've already had to revisit the fact that one of the residents there did not like that screening wall and put a fence up there. So I'm very, very sensitive. I appreciate to the fact that there's something should happen there, and that's why I went through my spiel insistent that there's not going to be anything there for those people to have a problem with. Okay, I'm done.
At this time, does anyone have any further questions or comments on the board?
John Arnott, Ron, in the outstanding motion on the table, can we make an assumption in there that this is made when you modify an assumption, make a modification to assume that there will be no change to this CR use, and then it's made in this spirit, because there's going to be a group here 10 years from now, and they're going to know, what's the spirit of this? What were they thinking? As to when we gave this exception. Could we put that into the motion, a statement of that effect into her motion?
I don't think that's necessary. I think it's pretty obvious that the spirit of what you're doing today is dealing exactly with what they're trying to do with expanding the capacity of the plant and the improvements that they're making. If there's to be any change of zoning, that's almost taking, again, a completely fresh look at the property, because you're getting into the actual use of the land itself, and that's typically when the development requirements, whatever was in place before, is subject to change after, once that zoning is approved.
Okay, thanks.
Hearing no more comments, we have a second to the motion. Can you read the motion back to us?
Oh, I have to do it?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Grant a special exception as requested with regard to the screening wall on the northeast portion of the property to waive the required screening wall. Grant the special exception to encroach on the front building line, to let the fence encroach on the front building line, provided it remains in its current location, and grant the special exception to allow for a 6-foot chain link and barbed wire fence around the perimeter of the property.
And we have a second by Mr. O'Pippery. Who is sitting out? You can't, you made the motion.
I'm a regular member.
Well, yes, but John is sitting out. All in favor of the motion as read, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. We have one more item on the agenda.
Two more.
Two more. Oh,
2 more items.
we got 15 minutes. All right. The next item, refresh me, I'm getting back to my agenda.
311 Village Trail.
311. And that was to, yep, that's the next one.
Rear setback.
A ZBA 1521, variance 311 Village Trail. If the applicant would please step forward, if we have any questions from the board at this time, because we are now into our regular session. Anyone have any questions, further questions from earlier? John, Mike,
No.
Lou?
Nope.
I have none. We are looking now for a motion to either grant or deny the application. Would anybody be willing to make a motion to either grant or deny the application?
We hear some thoughts from the rest of the board members, some discussion. Does anybody have any discussion?
Discussion will come after the motion.
It's Mike Biggs. I'll make a motion that we deny this application because it does not meet the criteria under which the exceptions are granted.
I second.
Any other questions or any comments by any of the members?
Lou Peppery, man, it's a hard one. I understand your problem there, but man, it's just too close to the property line, and I know we've had problems before with utility things across the back of the properties. I just am not comfortable with the. My heart says yes, but my practicality says that.
Thank you for considering that.
That this just isn't, that just doesn't meet the criteria.
Well, I got like 8 feet of, from my backyard fence to the proposed structure is going to be 8 feet. So none of the utility easements or electric and stuff like that is going to be obstructed. But, you know, I still thank you guys for like considering my variance application.
Well, I have a concern, Bob Ratter, Chairman. Bill, your name again, last name again, sir?
Billy Poitras.
Your neighbor, Bill Porthris, there was no evidence of exactly where the easement is for the utilities. So therefore, I have a problem with it. Until there is evidence of where the easements and the utilities run on your property, then you could come back and resubmit. That's what I would suggest.
Okay, I think it's on the survey plat. On the survey plat, Ron, if you look at it on the back, they have like a 10-foot like a square marked out, and then a dotted line for, I'm gonna bring a
All right.
readable
what
copy
you've-
of that.
But what you brought today and what we are going to vote on momentarily
Doesn't meet the criteria.
doesn't meet the criteria and doesn't prove evidence of a hardship. So, at this point in time, does anyone else in the audience have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask you a question? How else can I prove hardship in this case? What else would be
That would be a
criteria?
question that you would pose.
I understand that I'm encroaching into backyard. That's why I'm requesting a variance.
I think
Ron?
the hardship that he's talking about is for, with the state requirements, which is, lot area, size, and slope, I believe.
Yeah, the hardship, really, and this is just the cold Texas local government code coming into play here. It's really, we're dealing with the property itself. You have to kind of pull the individual out of it and look at the conditions that are unique to the property. And the way I always liken a true variance too is you pull a car into a position, and the only way to get out of it is to go backwards. And it has to have been somebody else that put the car there. It can't be an individual consideration. It has to be due to circumstances that are beyond your control. Then you've got the relief valve of the variance to grant. But in this case, you can't take financial considerations by themselves into play, or, as obviously as sensitive as it is with the family situation, that also can't come into play. It's really the property that we're dealing with here and the way it's laid out. And is there something unique about that as relative to other lots in this zoning district?
Not
And
even the
what-
safety of the occupant?
Mr. Ali,
Yes, sir.
there's two gentlemen sitting at this dais
Mm-hmm.
that have history with EMS and fire, long history. And we understand, but also let me give you that we have one of the finest fire departments here and police departments in the area.
Yes, sir.
So your safety is really, once you call 911, somebody's going to be there.
Right.
We can flag those.
We can, if you reapply after you show us where those easements are,
Okay.
and reapply and tell us where the
Okay.
utilities are,
Mm-hmm.
it can be taken into consideration.
Okay.
But at this point, there's no hardship proven, and I myself cannot and would not vote for approval.
Great.
This is Candace Boat. I'd like to make a comment as well. It would be good if you are going to reapply, at least for me personally, so that you have another plan. Maybe not have it go so far into the encroachment, have a secondary plan. That would help me, or at least see a floor plan to see how that could lay out.
I can do that.
Or move it,
Lou?
further,
Doubt
Lou
yourself.
Pippery.
Okay.
Move it further away from the neighbor's house.
It's,
I noticed that there's more room on the corner further to the west, I guess.
Sure. I spoke to Mr. Poitras maybe like a couple of months back, and I intended that if you're going to build the house extension to the west of the house, but since my house has got gable roof and it would not blend in, so we have to move the construction in the middle of the house, which still gives like 15 feet minimum, 15 plus 10 feet for the patio, 25 feet from the property line to the building wall. So, I can understand his concern, and I respect him. He's my neighbor. I don't want to make him mad and throw a good relationship in tailspin. But I will come back later,
Thank you.
and I thank you for your time, folks. Appreciate it.
Just one thing to note to the board is once the ruling is made by the board, it's in effect for a year. The
Yeah,
applicant
I
would
was
not
just
be able
gonna
to come
give
back.
him that.
Okay.
Again, once we make this decision, you can reapproach the town 1 year from this date.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, one question. If me and my wife decide, to build it on a different location of the property, not exactly like what I presented today, do I still have to wait a year?
Would that be a different set of circumstances, Mr. Ruthven?
Actually, the way the code reads is it applies to the property itself.
That's what I thought.
Candace Vogt, I have a question. Is it possible that we can table it until he brings more information? Is that a
Certainly, that's a option the board has if you'd like.
That's a good
Just
idea.
table it.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
If you do redesign, I would definitely recommend moving it further away from that rear setback, because 5 feet is just not enough.
No,
I understand that. Yes, ma'am. I'll do that. Yeah.
Mr. Ali, we've given you a out. I would entertain from this board a motion to table this item till such a time that you bring to us again a different idea, a different plan.
I will comply with that. Yes.
Chairman, the language I would recommend is continue this this item to the next regular scheduled zoning board of adjustment meeting.
Great. I'm looking for a
I
motion.
don't know when that date is at this
I'll
point.
know where it is.
let me withdraw my, Mike Biggs, let me withdraw my motion on this item.
Can you withdraw or
And
do we have to vote?
We have to have the second back out, and or did we have a second?
I've seconded it.
She can withdraw her motion and the same person second that, and then you can
Now-
redo the vote.
Redo the vote, and we need a motion to table. Would someone like to make that
I would
motion?
prefer use the word continue
Continue
to the next regular meeting.
to the next regular meeting.
This is Lou Pippery. I'll make a motion that we continue this to the next regular meeting and allow Mr. Ali the time to redo his plan and provide us more information.
Do I hear a second?
John Arnott, second.
Any further discussion? At this time, I'd like to call for the question and for the vote. All in favor of carrying this forward to the next scheduled meeting?
Continuing to the next scheduled
Continuing to
meeting.
the next scheduled meeting? That legalese will get you every time. All by show of hands, all four? It's unanimous. You have till our next meeting, Mr. Ali.
I'll try my best to meet that deadline, and I thank the board and everybody else in there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for considering my hardship. Thanks.
Do we have anything else before the board?
We just have the gate request at 351 Beckett. This was tabled from the last meeting because the applicant wasn't able to attend that meeting.
The applicant here?
I don't know if he is here or representative. Okay.
Oh.
Good.
If you'd like me to give a brief background on it, I can. Really what's happening here is it's a decorative gate that would be placed flush with the front line of the house. As you just heard on the mud variance, you've got to be back at least 10 feet behind the primary structure. A similar variance was granted by the board back in, I believe it was March. I don't remember exactly when, but this is the kind of thing that is not uncommon in developments where you have good home values, where you have decorative wrought iron gates. The whole point of having the requirement be offset 10 feet behind the front line of the house is for aesthetic visual breaks in the street yard. With a transparent wrought iron gate, it kind of meets that requirement anyway. It adds value to the property, and it's not an uncommon thing to see at all in many similar communities in this area.
And in this particular case, board members, this house is on the end of a cul-de-sac, which is on the end of a cul-de-sac, and there's not a whole lot of traffic on that street, unless you live on my street, where I've got a teenager living down the end of the street, and there's a lot of traffic. But you have anything to add to your request that we approve or deny your request?
Missy Burnell, and I'm here on behalf of my husband. So I'm going to let him know I was here for 2 hours. So I know we're on a cul-de-sac, but it's also, it looks nice. And we're trying to make sure that it equals the value of our home. In addition to that, I have a dog, and I want to make sure the dog stays in the backyard. And yeah, it just really looks nice and it adds value to our home and trophy club. So we would not put up something that's going to be gaudy or be displeasing to the community.
Any board members have any questions?
Candace Vogt, I do have a question. Is this going to be in addition to your current fence? I mean, so your backyard will still be fenced?
Yep.
And this will be in addition? Okay.
Yes.
It's just to the front of the building,
Just to the front of the building, that's what I want.
meeting the front of the building.
Yes.
John Arnott, it's the see-through fence, all metal.
The front gate?
Gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Michael?
I move that we approve this request for exception.
Second.
Who
Lou
second?
Pippery, second.
Do we have any discussion from any other members? Who's voting? Who's sitting out?
I'm out.
I'm
No, I
voting.
can't.
Mike?
I'm voting.
Oh, you
No, I
made the
can't.
motion.
I
You
know.
can't sit out. Who's sitting out?
I am.
Mike, John's gonna sit out. All in favor of approving the application for the
Special exception
special
for,
exception?
yes.
The legalese is whatever. Signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
All in favor? Unanimous vote.
Aye.
Thank you.
You have your gate.
Thank you.
Should've done it first.
I made the motion.
This next time, put me first.
Do we have any other business before the board, Mr. Ruthven?
No, we do not.
I am entertaining a motion at 6 o'clock for an adjournment.
Too close.
Lou Peppery, motion we adjourn.
All in
And,
favor?
just-
We're out of here.
Aye. Good, thank you.